The closing bell has sounded on Wall Street and on the trading week, and what we just lived through was a classic late December tape. Not a panic, not a melt-up, but a market where individual stories mattered more than the indices and policy. Headlines started to reshape some powerful themes. I'm Grant Mercer, this is Storm Stock Solutions, and we're here to bring clarity through the chaos of the week that was. Stepping back, this week's big picture story was less about one macro shock and more about a cluster of policy moves and long-term worries. According to MarketWatch, there's growing concern about the US dollar's standing in the world and what that means for everyday purchasing power. One column framed it bluntly: as the dollar loses global respect, Americans risk buying less or paying more. That's the kind of slow burn theme that doesn't move a single day's candles, but it shapes everything from import prices to how investors think about owning U.S. assets versus overseas. On the policy front, the Trump administration grabbed market attention in a couple of places. First, there was a wave of drug pricing deals. MarketWatch reports new agreements with 9 more drug makers, taking the total to 14, aimed at lowering pharmaceutical prices. At the same time, another move to reclassify cannabis has analysts gaming out timelines for tax relief and expanded research. None of these changes are fully priced in yet, but together they're redrawing the map for healthcare and cannabis going into 2026. Now, let's talk winners and standout themes. In a week full of stock-by-stock action, one of the clear upside stories was Rocket Lab. As MarketWatch's William Gavin details, the launch company completed a U.S. government contract months ahead of schedule and immediately won a new one, helping push the stock toward new highs. That's a textbook example of how execution and government validation can change the growth narrative for a smaller space player. Traders will remember this one as a proof of capability week for Rocket Lab. Infosys delivered one of the more dramatic plot twists. According to reporting from MarketWatch, the stock suddenly surged about 50% intraday before cooling off, creating what some are calling a big Friday mystery on Wall Street. The move set off all kinds of speculation about whether there was a trading error, a rumor, or just a momentary vacuum in liquidity. Even after the pullback, that episode will stick in traders' minds as a reminder that even large, liquid names can have air pockets, and that risk management still matters in a seemingly calm tape. In big tech, Alphabet picked up some notable buzz from the prediction markets. MarketWatch highlighted data from Polymarket showing Alphabet's odds of being the world's largest company at the end of next year running neck and neck with Nvidia's. That doesn't guarantee any outcome, but it does signal where some speculative money sees the next leg of leadership. For a market that's been obsessed with AI and mega-cap dominance, this week was a subtle shift in expectations about who might wear the crown. On the flip side, the risk story this week wasn't tied to a single collapsing sector, but to the underlying financial stress many households are feeling, even as markets trade near highs. MarketWatch ran a series of personal finance pieces that collectively painted a sobering backdrop. Americans in their 60s still paying student loans, retirees fearing homelessness with modest savings, and investors with sizable portfolios worried about concentrated positions and future tax bills. Those stories don't move tickers by themselves, but they highlight the real-world constraints on consumer spending and the uneven ability to participate in this bull market. For long-horizon investors, that's something to keep in mind when thinking about demand, savings rates, and political pressure on policy. In terms of macro and policy, you can think of this week as a stage setter. The debate over the dollar's strength and global role is intensifying, as MarketWatch's Charlie Garcia underscores. The drug pricing deals and cannabis reclassification effort from the Trump administration are reshuffling expectations for earnings and regulation in healthcare and cannabis. None of these stories are done. They're opening chapters, and the next data points and rulemaking steps will determine whether we see sustained sector rotations or just short-lived tradable blips. Looking forward into next week, there are a few under-the-radar themes I'll be keeping on the Storm Stock Solutions watch list. First, the pharma complex. Those drug pricing agreements with now 14 companies are an evolving story. Traders will be watching whether additional firms sign on, how pricing details shake out, and which business models look best positioned in a lower-price world. Second, cannabis. After the move to reclassify, the question, as MarketWatch notes, is when the change takes effect and how quickly tax relief and research access translate into real earnings power. Policy timelines, not just headlines, are going to matter here. And finally, the student debt overhang. That feature on borrowers carrying loans into their 60s is a reminder that household balance sheets are stretched in places. If we see any new relief measures or credit tightening, that could ripple into spending and risk appetite. So as you head into the weekend, the takeaway is this: it was a week where policy and positioning mattered more than a single macro surprise. Space and select tech stories showed what execution and sentiment can do on the upside. Currency concerns, household stress, and regulatory shifts reminded everyone that the foundation under this market is complex. Not broken, but not bulletproof either. We'll be back with a Sunday recap to reset the board for the holiday stretch, and then with our pre-open rundown to get you ready for the next trading week. Remember, this is information and education, not personalized financial advice. As always, I'll be here to keep clarity through the chaos of these markets. On behalf of Storm Stock Solutions, I'm Grant Mercer. Stay sharp, stay steady,